speaking of storytelling, over on SmackDown, the LA Knight story arc is such a fun, interesting thing to watch because it's all happening in real time. What happens with LA Knight? Everyone's got an opinion about LA Knight. Nobody will stop talking about LA Knight, no matter what town you go to, no matter what state you go to, no matter what country you go to. Everybody is chanting LA Knight, yeah. And it was happening again. Now, clearly they're building towards LA Knight versus The Miz. And it's this inter-brand rivalry. Now, I said, by the way, all the way back at the draft, I said, LA Knight needs to go over to Raw and be a babyface already. Like, start this. And now they're in this position where they've got LA Knight as a babyface, and they know he should be on Raw with a fresh coat of paint. And The Miz is the perfect opponent for him. But they're on separate brands. So we got to do the interpromotional rivalry where The Miz shows up on commentary on SmackDown because he figures, well, if Michael Cole can be on both shows, why can't he be on both shows? Which is a good call. It's a decent call from Mizanin. I don't know why The Miz would have less clout in the WWE than Michael Cole. I think that's fair on The Miz's part to assume that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. What I'm not 100% sure about is the decision to have LA Knight lose. Now, I am not of the school of thought that, like, people are really sitting there counting wins and losses. And I generally favor the story far above whether the person won or lost. Like, to me, it doesn't make as much difference as the story. But the story with LA Knight is that he's finally hitting his stride. And we're just getting there. LA Knight this whole year, really, I mean, coming out of last year and into this year, it's been, everybody's looking at this guy like, oh, he's something different. He's something special. And he loses every match. This was earlier this year. And people still are intrigued by him. And eventually people still cheer him. And he loses all the time. Going back to the Royal Rumble and the Mountain Dew match, right? And so now he's finally at this spot where he's winning. And I thought, obviously winning the Battle Royal at SummerSlam is a big step. Then having his segment with The Miz on Raw. Then, boom, the victory against Top Dollar. I was like, that's exactly where LA Knight should be right now. If he's going to be in a match wrestling, not just doing a promo, he should be in a match against somebody who is not going to be the most difficult person for him to beat, but also has some credibility when he beats him, so it matters. What he shouldn't be doing is losing matches again. And that's what he did on SmackDown. Now, I was wondering when it started what the plan was, because obviously LA Knight is not going to go after Rey Mysterio for the United States Championship right now. Number one, they're both baby faces. Number two, LA Knight has nothing to do with Rey Mysterio's story right now. And number three, LA Knight and The Miz are starting something. So why would we have this, as well as don't put Rey Mysterio in that situation, because even somebody as popular as Rey Mysterio is going to have the audience turn because they're going to want LA Knight to win that title. So it's like, obviously LA Knight's not going to beat Austin Theory and become the number one contender for the United States Championship. But also, why would LA Knight be losing matches right now? And that's what happened. The Miz interfered. And so there was an excuse, and LA Knight was kind of smiling in a way to facially, visually let people know, like, okay, I didn't actually lose that match. That was The Miz. That was The Miz's fault. And what we should be focusing on is the story with LA Knight and The Miz going forward, which I agree with. And I think that's what people are doing. I don't think this is a catastrophe by any stretch of the imagination. But, I mean, I do think that it could have been more constructive to get there in a place that didn't end with an LA Knight loss. And I know you're going, well, then how do you do that without making LA Knight the number one contender? I would say don't have him involved in a United States Championship number one contender. I mean, I get it, right? Because it gets people to be on his side. They want him to win because they want him to be a champion, but I don't know. I was just stuck on the loss. I was like, this feels like you're letting the air out of the balloon. And there's only so much of these you can do. And I think you got to be careful, because I think for the elongation of the rivalry, the idea of LA Knight losing to The Miz is not unfathomable at all. And I don't even think it would be a bad thing. But I think LA Knight should have a string of wins before he gets to The Miz if he's going to lose. Now, if he's going to beat The Miz, I guess ultimately it doesn't matter. But you want to go in, you don't want to go into an LA Knight situation where people are like, I mean, I like him, but he loses. He's probably going to lose this one because people will lose interest in, and I don't think you want that.